It's been a couple of days since Team Affinity Season 2 came out on Friday, and I've been playing a lot of Showdown and things like that, testing a lot of the cards that you get in Team Affinity Season 2. And today, I'm going to review all 30 of the big tiered cards in Team Affinity, and hopefully the goal of this video is to give you guys some direction of what players you should go for first, and players that'll be the most beneficial to add to your team. Let's get into it. YouTube, what is going on? We are back with another video. In case you do not know me, my name is Scan. I've been uploading nearly daily MLB Show gameplay tips, no money spent tips, and things like that onto the channel. So if you're brand new and not hit that subscribe button, make sure you toss a sub down there. We're on our way to 7K. So if you're trying to get better at the game, get into MLB The Show and things like that, make sure you peruse the channel and see if there are other videos that you may enjoy or things that will help you. Also, if you do not know, I do stream on Twitch. I'll be debuting a lot of these guys on the Twitch stream and ranked tomorrow. So if you want to come hang out, watch me play with these cards, get a look at them in game, make sure you come swing by. It'll be fun to actually use these cards and see how they play. But now, just talk about our cards and let's go through each of the Team Affinity cards. So first of all, I thought it would be worth pointing out that there are a bunch of good Legend and Flashback cards that are available in Team Affinity Season 2. Those diamond packs that you get at the early part of each program have a bunch of solid players that I would recommend trying. So I'm gonna go through some of those first that I think are worth trying, adding to your bench, starting lineup if you're just hopping on the game for the first time, and things like that. Let's go through the ones that I think are actually good and worth potentially using. First, we have the Sergio Romo, which is in the NL West Team Affinity. Nice reliever option. A lot of people like Sergio Romo each year, and this one is probably pretty solid. Jose Leclerc is a glitchy little card that used to be in MLB The Show, obviously returning. He's available in the AL West Team Affinity. Larry Walker is actually a pretty solid diamond. He's in the NL East Team Affinity. He's got pretty solid attributes, but Larry Walker has that good balance of contact, power, and defense. We got Justin Upton available in the NL West Team Affinity. Crushes lefties, so if you need a bench bet that crushes lefties, Justin Upton is probably that for you. Now we have Gary Sanchez available in the AL East Team Affinity. Honestly, is a viable catcher option. I'm going to be trying him at catcher, maybe platoon him. His weak contact versus lefties, but overall is a nice catcher. Big power, and if you need a good starter catcher on any difficulty like all-star or below in ranked seasons and things like that, Gary is probably your guy. Now we have Charlie Blackmon in the NL West Team Affinity. Actually a nice little bat. He's got good splits versus righties. He's a cool little hitter. Nothing super insane by any means, but you know, a nice little outfielder bat if you need a center fielder or right fielder, but his defense is not going to be too great. So Joe Nathan available in the AL Central, Heath Bell in the NL West, and Craig Kimbrell in the AL East are all viable righty relievers that you may want to try to fill in the back end of your bullpen with. And Sean Doolittle in the AL West is a solid little lefty option in case you need a nice lefty reliever. There aren't that many in the early part of the year. Next we have Edwin Encarnacion in the AL East, probably no more than a bench bet, but can play in the corner infield. He does have solid power. Then we have Juan Pierre in the NL East, who's got really great speed. He could be a nice bench pinch runner option if you need that. And finally, John Lester in the NL Central has a solid pitch mix and a nice little repertoire for a low diamond starter if you need a back end of the rotation starter. Now that we went through those Legends and Flashback packs, let's talk about the big Team Affinity cards that we're all trying to go for. So first, let's talk about the players that I think we need to pass on. I mean, they're not bad cards by any means, but in terms of the other options in Team Affinity, there are a lot other better options I would recommend starting. First, we got Bryce Terang on the Brewers. He's a shortstop. He's got high contact, low power though. Solid enough defense, but like in comparison to the other shortstop options in Team Affinity Season 2, definitely one you would want to pass on. You got Isaac Paredes, who is a third baseman, which again, he doesn't have power. He does have pretty okay defense. I didn't mind using him a bit. But again, nothing too crazy, especially for a third baseman where you want power whenever possible. We got Jordan Balazovic on the Twins, which again isn't bad, but like he's just a very generic starting pitcher with not so much stuff. Very generic release as well. Nothing really special to this card. And we could say the same about Josiah Gray for the Dodgers Team Affinity. Just not too great. Very basic pitcher. Probably worth passing on him. Next, we got Tony Gwynn in the NL West. Honestly, maybe isn't a bad card because of the high contact, but this issue with this Tony Gwynn is that he doesn't have enough speed, fielding, or power to really be recommended. Tony Gwynn cards usually rely on his high defense, his high speed, high contact, and hopefully having just enough power, but he does not really have attributes close to that in this card. Now we have Shane McClanahan on the Rays. Maybe nice lefty starter, but again, just very generic compared to other lefties in the Team Affinity. Probably not even close to the best. And I would probably recommend just passing on him. Next, we have Jackson Rutledge, which is in the same kind of category as Josiah Gray or Jordan Belozovic, where he's not a crazy starter by any means. Can maybe get the job done. Maybe if you are a fan of the team, you go for him, but doesn't seem to be anything crazy from the outside looking in. Now, these two are probably some of the more disappointing cards of the Team Affinity. The first one being Lou Gehrig. I was excited because I thought this Lou Gehrig would have had solid hitting, maybe silver fielding, but honestly, they really killed this card. He has nothing impressive versus lefties by any means, but only 80-something power, and first base is a big power position. If you're not going to provide much power, you don't seem to have much benefit at that spot. So Lou Gehrig is probably a first baseman I would pass on in this program. So now the final card I think is actually the worst. My least liked card in the Team Affinity is Johnny Damon. Really weak arm, no good defense, not that great speed, alright contact, maybe could have worse power. I've heard some people say he's kind of glitchy, but again, you compare him to other outfielders here. I would 100% pass on Johnny Damon. Alright, so now let's talk about the next tier of cards. These cards I would say are usable, as in, if you need some depth on your team, I would go for them, but there are definitely better options in the program that I would try over these guys. First, let's talk about some pitching. Roy Oswalt in the AL West is actually not a terrible starter. He probably can deceive some people with a slow breaking ball, and he has usable stuff. The hits per 9 is definitely too low for me to really recommend him, especially if you're on Hall of Fame difficulty where you're trying to make a World Series push. These guys are going to be a little big against Roy Oswalt, and good hitters which you'll be facing at that point will probably hit him hard. Next, we have Mark Pryor, who honestly, I could have put Mark Pryor in the pass category, but I feel like this card is a little more useful than people anticipate. He does have a slurve, which is a great pitch, and a curveball, but again, this needs one pitch to really beat Dom. If he had like a sinker or a cutter with that, I would have helped him a little more. If you're playing people who are chasing out of zone frequently, Mark Pryor may be a solid pitcher for you, but I would recommend other guys above him. Now let's talk about some hitters who maybe aren't the best. First, we have Edgar Martinez, who isn't a bad first base. He's got good contact versus both sides, great power versus righties, but for some reason they killed his power versus lefties. And ideally, you want to have that power at first base, kind of like Lou Gehrig. However, this card does have more usable hitting attributes, maybe a solid swing. Now we got Cal Ripken. Honestly, this Ripken's a little different than the 42 series Ripken. This Ripken, I think, resembles his younger swing. So he does have a little bit of a faster swing. He does have diamond fielding. He does have good pop versus lefties, and there are a lot of good lefties in the game right now. So he could be of value, but again, not everyone likes Ripken. This card doesn't bounce off the page in comparison to the other shortstops we have. Now we have Johnny Bench for the Reds, who honestly is similar to Ripken in the sense that he has good splits versus lefties. He has solid defense as well, and is a little weak versus righties, but there are other better catcher options. This card could be a nice little bench option though, with some positional versatility, maybe a solid pinch hit bat. And finally, we have Robert Poisson, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and he seems like a solid little infielder. If you need a second baseman, that's where his value is. There aren't that many second basemen in his program. He does have that secondary at second base. He's a switch hitter, high contact, solid speed and fielding, but just again lacks in power. He has been a little glitchy when I've used him now. I would prioritize the other shortstops we're going to talk about in a little here. Now, let's talk about our second to last tier. These are the cards that are good. Like, they're definitely good, but they aren't a priority. I would recommend trying these guys if you need certain spots in your outfield and your rotation and things like that. But again, they aren't a priority. First, we got Brandon Webb. He has a solid pitch mix. He has sinker, cutter, which is a big deal. A little low again on the per 9 since he's only a 92 overall. But he does have a very good pitch mix that will definitely be good at certain points in ranked seasons. Definitely a viable starter for the back end of the rotation, especially if you are grinding these other Team Affinity cards. Then we got Quinn Priester for the Pirates. He has that sinker and fastball combo, so he does have a solid pitch mix here. Probably comparable to that Brandon Webb, but I think he has a little better per 9s. Probably a worth the try starter for the back end of your rotation if you don't have many starters right now. Willie Mays for the Giants Team Affinity. I mean, you look at Willie Mays, you expect good fielding, good power, good contact, and speed. And this card has good of everything, but a little less than we would probably hope. But you know, it gets the job done. His swing actually played really well for me. And if you happen to need a third outfielder on a team with solid defense, Willie Mays is probably a solid guy, and especially if you grind him the super factor, I bet this card is pretty viable right now. And finally, we have Hank Aaron, who again, I feel is pretty comparable to Willie Mays in that his good card will be good all around, but this card could have used a little more of a bump. This card is a little bit more platoon side than we would hope, but again, gets the job done, and hell, he could play third base if you need a third baseman, but you know, play him in the outfield. He has a solid swing. The swing will kind of carry this card above his attributes. The final tier, and these are the must-haves of the Team Affinity. These cards I think are very good, ones I would recommend starting on your team or maybe even platooning depending on the situation. Or maybe guys I would really focus on getting for your rotation first. So let's talk about our pitchers first. First we got Garrett Crochet on the White Sox. He's a lefty starter. Obviously we hope this card would be a reliever, but he's got the outlier on the four seam. First of all, he's a lefty, which there aren't that many in this game right now, and usually there aren't, but also he has that super fast fastball. Playing against not so great players, he's probably going to be very good. I'd probably recommend him on Hall of Fame legend making a World Series push too. He's just one pitch away from being really dominant, but he's definitely very good with that pitch mix he has right now. Then we have 97 Cliff Lee on the Phillies, which I think is scary good on paper. That control is elite control. I definitely recommend trying him for your rotation. Definitely a very good starter. I will say the hits per 9 could be a little higher. He doesn't have much velocity, so if you aren't hitting your spots, he's probably going to get rocked. If you're using pinpoint pitching though, and you're actually good at it, I would definitely recommend trying Cliff Lee. Next we have the polar opposite type starter pitcher, Edward Cabrera, who is Sixto Sanchez, but a little better. Better per 9s, he has the outlier on the sinker, and he's going to have more control than that 88-6 though. However, it's still going to be kind of the opposite of Cliff Lee, where he has velocity and nasty stuff, but he's not going to have the same level of control. But definitely a usable starter, especially on Hall of Fame legend difficulty, where there aren't many guys who have stupid good velocity like this. But definitely a viable starter for your rotation. Now let's talk about some good catcher options that are available in Team Affinity. Obviously, there aren't that many catchers in the game right now that are really worth it, and these guys are all definitely viable catchers. On paper, Sam Huff for the Rangers looks like the best all-around catcher of the bunch. Great power, more than good enough contact, gold fielding, and not too bad of speed. The only downside of his card is I heard his swing is very Piazza-like. If you like that Mike Piazza, you'll probably like Sam Huff. You kind of got to load up on fastballs a little earlier. He's got a longer swing, so you kind of got to time up pitches earlier. However, if that's not an issue for you, this card is going to be very good. But that is an issue for people, so I do want to suggest some other options at catchers who I think are really good. Next, we have Joe Torre for the Cardinals, who honestly really surpassed my expectations. He does have a high 125 contact versus both sides, so his PCI is going to be very big. He actually does have 85 power versus righties, which is more than usable. And then versus lefties, he does have 60 something, but for my use of him, it seems like he still can hit the ball hard versus lefties in the outfield. And he has silver fielding. That could be a lot worse. I would recommend trying Joe Torre first if you don't like that Sam Huff card. And finally, we got Jimmy Fox, who is a primary first baseman, kind of like Joe Torre is a primary third baseman, but I would play him at catcher. It's where he's going to get the most value. His defense, kind of bad, but he does crush lefties, and there are a fair amount of good lefties in the game right now. You could platoon Jimmy Fox with at least like a Torre type player, or maybe even Gary Sanchez, and just have a matchup for either lefties or righties and be really set on that. Definitely a viable catcher, at least for the bench versus lefties. So one card that I really think is a must-have is Jim Thome on the Indians. Great power versus both sides and crushes versus righties with that contact as well. 70-something contact versus lefties isn't great, but Jim Thome is actually a really big bet. This card was slept on last year when he had a similar type. This one is definitely the best first baseman in the game, not named David Ortiz. And man, I kind of want to start him at first over David Ortiz and give him a go. Now we got some shortstop options that you guys could definitely try. They're definitely very similar and both very good. I would recommend one of these if you need a shortstop. First, we got Jordan Groshans on the Jays. Definitely better attributes of the Team Affinity shortstops: high contact, great power, gold fielding, and 70 speed, so a great all-around shortstop. I would recommend trying him first. If you don't like him, try Ronnie Mauricio on the Mets. Mauricio is a switch hitter. He's got a little better fielding and a little slower in terms of speed, but is a nice switch hitter. So if you have a righty-heavy lineup, or if you struggle with Groshans, I would definitely try Ronnie Mauricio, a great shortstop option. And to wrap it up, I have two cards who I personally find are very underrated. At least were before we got this drop of Team Affinities and found out attributes. First, we have Torrey Hunter for the Angels. I don't think there is another Team Affinity card who has this impressive of hitting attributes, but also diamond defense. Torrey Hunter is a little slower, so I'd recommend playing him in the corner outfield if you have a high-speed center fielder like Byron Buxton. But Torrey Hunter is actually pretty solid. He's definitely a nice, good all-around card, and he doesn't really have any weaknesses. And finally, the last card, we got Dante Bichette, the milestone card. Got absolutely impressive hitting attributes. Probably the best all-around hitting attributes out of every card in this program. The defense sucks. It really does. But the 70 speed should make up for some bad jumps. If you keep him in right field, he really won't be too bad. He may make some costly plays, but if he hits as well as he should, he's going to be a fantastic bat. But also if you use him on the bench, that's fine too. There is a place on your team for this Dante Bichette. And that is going to be it. Those are my cards for Team Affinity that I recommend. And that is how I would generally classify these cards on the ones that you should go for first. Or maybe just add for depth in your team, or even just pass on entirely. If you guys disagree, if you want to have a debate in the comment section, definitely let me know. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you learned something new, make sure you hit a thumbs up on the video. And I appreciate you all watching. Hopefully you learned something insightful from this. That's going to be it. I hope you all have a great day. And I'll see you all in the next video later this week. Deuces!